The breaking moment wasn't his reaction, it was everyone else's. I expected awkward smiles, maybe a few laughs, but instead, his best friend stood up and pushed his chair back, like he couldn't sit through it. Then his mom, who'd always been warm to me, looked down at her plate and didn't touch her food again. My boyfriend didn't argue. He calmly pulled out his phone and opened a group chat titled Apartment Move Out, created 2 days earlier, with his brother and a cousin. I realized he'd been preparing for this kind of moment, not because he was paranoid, but because he'd been seeing a pattern I refused to admit. And when I reached for his hand, he moved it away like it wasn't mine to hold anymore. But let me back up. My name is Evadne Leclair, and until 3 hours ago, I thought I was being clever. I'm 32, work as an administrative assistant at a marketing firm, and I've been dating Simon Dorsey for 2 years. Simon's a software engineer, steady, reliable, the kind of guy who remembers anniversaries and always splits the check fairly. The problem is, steady and reliable can feel suffocating when you're someone like me, someone who craves excitement and attention. Tonight was supposed to be a simple family dinner at the Dorsey house. Linda, Simon's mom, had made her famous pot roast. Ben, Simon's younger brother, was there with his kids, 8-year-old Ellie and 5-year-old Max. And then there was Jax. Geordie Jax Halperin, Simon's longtime friend from college, all charm and easy smiles. Jax had always paid attention to me in ways Simon didn't, noticed when I wore something new, complimented my laugh. The affair started 6 months ago. It wasn't planned. These things never are, right? Simon had been working late constantly on some big project, coming home exhausted and distracted. Jax would text me funny memes, ask how my day went, actually listen when I complained about my boring job. One evening, when Simon cancelled our date night for the 3rd time, Jax suggested we grab drinks instead. Just as friends, he'd said, with that crooked grin that made my stomach flip. 1 drink became 3, 3 became dinner, dinner became his apartment, and suddenly I had this secret, thrilling part of my life that belonged only to me. I told myself Simon wouldn't even notice. He was so wrapped up in his code and his deadlines. When he did pay attention, it was to lecture me about our budget or suggest we stay in and watch documentaries. Jax made me feel alive, desired, like I was worth pursuing instead of just there. So tonight, sitting around Linda's dining room table, with everyone chatting about work and the kids' school activities, I felt this familiar restlessness. Simon was explaining some technical problem to his brother, completely absorbed, not even glancing my way. Jack sat across from me, occasionally catching my eye and smiling. My best friend Marlene had texted earlier, "Girl, you need to shake things up. Life's too short to be bored." The words just tumbled out. "You know, Simon," I said during a lull in conversation, reaching for my wine glass with a laugh, "you're lucky I'm so loyal. I mean, I could have my pick of guys, but here I am, choosing you every day. You're just one option, but you're my option." I thought it was playful, flirty even, a little wake-up call that he shouldn't take me for granted. The silence that followed felt like a physical weight. Linda's fork stopped halfway to her mouth. Ben cleared his throat uncomfortably. Little Ellie looked between the adults with wide, confused eyes. But it was Jax's reaction that should have warned me. Instead of his usual encouraging grin, he looked uncomfortable, almost guilty. He pushed back from the table abruptly. "I should probably head out," he mumbled, avoiding everyone's eyes. "Early morning tomorrow." "Jax, you haven't even had dessert," Linda protested weakly, but her heart wasn't in it. "Rain check, Mrs. D." He grabbed his jacket and was gone before anyone could say another word. That's when Simon pulled out his phone. The group chat was right there on the screen. Apartment Move Out, with Ben and their cousin Marcus as participants. Created 2 days ago. "Simon," I tried to keep my voice light. "What's that about?" He looked at me for a long moment, and I saw something in his eyes I'd never seen before. Not anger, exactly. Disappointment, maybe. Or resignation. Just planning ahead, Evadne. You know how I like to be prepared. Linda stood suddenly, gathering plates with sharp, efficient movements. Well, I think it's time to clean up. Ben, can you help the kids with their homework upstairs? Within minutes, the warm family gathering had dissolved. Linda was running water in the kitchen with unnecessary force. Ben had disappeared with Ellie and Max, and I was alone with Simon at the dining room table, the weight of my words finally settling in. It was just a joke, I said quietly. Simon powered off his phone and slipped it into his pocket. Was it? Of course it was. You know I didn't mean anything by it. He stood up, began stacking the remaining dishes. The thing is, Evadne, I don't think I do know that anymore. What's that supposed to mean? It means I've been paying more attention lately. To what you say, how you act, where you go. He paused, a dinner plate in each hand. It means I'm not as oblivious as you think I am. My stomach dropped. Simon, you're being paranoid. Am I? He carried the dishes to the kitchen and I followed. Linda looked up from the sink, her expression carefully neutral. I think I'll head home, I announced, grabbing my purse. Let everyone cool off. Good idea, Linda said without looking at me. It was the first time she'd ever been anything less than warm and welcoming. Simon walked me to the door in silence. On the porch, I tried one more time. This is silly. We're fighting over nothing. Are we fighting? He asked, because I thought you were just exercising your options. The drive home was a blur of streetlights and racing thoughts. I kept replaying the evening, trying to understand how a simple joke had gone so wrong. By the time I pulled into our apartment complex, I'd convinced myself everyone was overreacting. Tomorrow, things would go back to normal. Simon would remember why he loved me. His family would forgive a moment of poor judgment. I was wrong about everything. The apartment felt different when I walked in. Simon had beaten me home. His car was in the lot, but the living room was empty. I found him in the bedroom, methodically folding clothes and placing them in a duffel bag. What are you doing? Packing some things. He didn't look up from his task. I'm going to stay at Ben's for a few days. Simon, this is ridiculous. We can talk about this like adults. Okay. He straightened up, meeting my eyes for the first time since we'd left his mother's house. Let's talk. Where were you last Tuesday night? The question hit me like a slap. Tuesday night I'd been at Jax's apartment, wrapped in his sheets while Simon thought I was at book club. Book club, I said automatically. You know that. Right, book club, he resumed packing. What book did you discuss? My mind went blank. We talked about several books. It's more of a general discussion group. He folded a pair of jeans with precise, sharp movements. And last Friday when you said you were working late. I was working late. Until midnight. There was a lot to catch up on. Simon nodded slowly. I called your office Friday around 8. The security guard said the building had been empty since 6. The room seemed to tilt. Maybe he was wrong. Maybe he didn't see me. Maybe. Simon zipped the duffel bag closed. Or maybe you've been lying to me for months, and tonight's little performance was just the first time you were careless enough to do it in front of witnesses. You're being paranoid and controlling, I snapped, falling back on the script Jax and I had discussed. I can't live under constant suspicion. You're right, Simon said quietly. You can't, and I can't live with constant lies. He moved past me toward the door, bag in hand. I grabbed his arm. Don't leave. We can work this out. For a moment, his expression softened. Evadne, if you want to work this out, you need to tell me the truth. All of it, right now. This was my chance. I could confess everything, beg forgiveness, promise to end things with Jax. We could go to counseling, rebuild trust, start over. Instead, I doubled down. There's nothing to tell. You're creating problems where none exist. Simon's face went blank again. Okay. Then there's nothing to work out. He left without another word. I heard his car start, watched from the window as his taillights disappeared down the street. The apartment felt enormous and silent around me. I called Marlene immediately. "Simon's lost his mind," I said as soon as she picked up. "He's acting like I committed some crime because I made one little joke." "What exactly did you say?" Marlene's voice was careful. I repeated my words from dinner, adding some dramatic flair about Simon's overreaction, but Marlene was quiet for a long moment. "Evie, honey, that's pretty harsh, especially in front of his family. It was a joke." "Was it, though? Because you've been complaining about Simon being boring for months, and you've been spending an awful lot of time with that Jax guy." My chest tightened. "We're just friends." "Are you?" "I can't believe you're taking his side." "I'm not taking anyone's side. I'm just saying, maybe you should think about why Simon reacted the way he did. Maybe he has reasons to be suspicious." I hung up on her. Marlene was supposed to be my best friend, my ally. Instead, she was questioning me just like everyone else. I poured myself a large glass of wine and settled on the couch with my phone. Jax had texted, "Hey, sorry about tonight. Felt weird being there for that. You okay?" I typed back, "Simon's being crazy. Moved out over nothing." His response took several minutes. "Maybe give him some space. Let things cool down." "I thought you'd want to see me tonight." Another long pause. "Probably not a good idea right now. Talk tomorrow." I stared at the message in disbelief. When I needed him most, Jax was pulling away too. I tried calling, but it went straight to voicemail. The wine made everything feel fuzzy and distant. I scrolled through social media, looking for distraction, but even that felt wrong. A photo of Linda and Ben at some family event last weekend, all smiles. A post from Marlene about authentic relationships. Everything seemed designed to remind me of what I was losing. I fell asleep on the couch, still in my dinner clothes, phone dead in my hand. The next morning brought a pounding headache and the harsh reality of an empty apartment. Simon's absence was everywhere. His coffee mug wasn't in the sink. His laptop charger wasn't snaking across the counter. His side of the bed was untouched. I called in sick to work and spent the day alternating between anger and panic. By evening, I'd convinced myself this was all a misunderstanding that could be easily fixed. Simon was hurt and embarrassed, but he'd come around once he realized how much he needed me. I drove to Ben's apartment building and waited in the parking lot until I saw Simon's car pull in. He looked tired, rumpled, like he hadn't slept well either. Good. Maybe he was ready to be reasonable. "Simon," I called, getting out of my car. "Can we talk?" He stopped walking but didn't approach. "What do you want to say?" "I want to apologize. I was thoughtless last night. I hurt your feelings and I'm sorry." "Okay, apology accepted." He started walking toward the building again. I hurried to catch up. "That's it. We're okay." "No, Evadne, we're not okay, but I accept that you're sorry for hurting my feelings." "Then come home. We can move past this." Simon paused at the building entrance, key in hand. "Moving past it would require honesty. Are you ready to be honest?" There it was again, that opening, that chance to come clean. And again, I couldn't take it. Too much would unravel. Too many people would be hurt. Too many secrets would come to light. "I've been honest. You're the one creating drama." Simon nodded like he'd expected that answer. "Then we don't have anything else to discuss." The door closed behind him, leaving me alone in the parking lot. I sat in my car for 20 minutes, waiting to see if he'd change his mind and come back out. He didn't. That night, I finally reached Jax. "We need to talk," I said when he answered. "Evie, I don't think—" "Just meet me, please. One drink." He agreed reluctantly to meet at our usual place, a downtown bistro where we'd had our first not-to-date 6 months ago. But when I arrived, he was already nursing a beer and checking his watch like he couldn't wait to leave. "This is bad," he said without preamble. "Simon's been asking questions, calling mutual friends. He knows something." "So what? We haven't done anything wrong." Jack stared at me. "We've been sleeping together for 6 months. That's not nothing." "It's not like we planned it. It just happened." "Yeah, well, now it needs to unhappen. I can't be in the middle of this anymore." "You're abandoning me too?" "I'm protecting myself. And honestly, you should think about doing the same. Come clean before Simon finds proof." "There is no proof." Jax's expression was pitying. "Evie, there's always proof. Text messages, credit card receipts, security cameras. If Simon's half as smart as I think he is, he's already building a case." "A case for what? We're not married. He can't sue me for cheating." "No, but he can make sure everyone knows what really happened. He can make sure your version of events doesn't become the official story." I wanted to argue, but something in Jax's tone made me pause. "What do you mean?" "I mean, Simon's not the kind of guy who gets mad and throws things. He's the kind of guy who documents everything and plans his next move carefully. And right now, you're giving him plenty to document." The bistro suddenly felt too small, too exposed. Other diners were glancing our way, and I wondered if any of them knew Simon, knew his family, would report back on seeing us together. "I should go," Jack said, standing and dropping cash on the table. "We both should. And Evie, maybe don't contact me for a while." He left me sitting alone with 2 drinks and a growing sense that my carefully managed double life was spiraling completely out of control. The rumors started at Simon's workplace. I didn't find out until 3 days later when my friend Jessica from the gym mentioned seeing some drama on her boyfriend's social media. Her boyfriend worked at the same tech company as Simon. Someone posted screenshots in their company Slack about Simon Dorsey's girlfriend cheating with his best friend, Jessica said, not realizing she was talking about me. Apparently it all came out at a family dinner. Super messy. My blood turned to ice. Screenshots of what? Text messages, I think, and some photos from a restaurant. The whole office is talking about it. I made an excuse and left the gym immediately. My workout barely started. In the parking lot, I called Simon's direct line at work. It rang 4 times before going to voicemail. "Simon, it's me. I heard there are rumors going around your office. We need to talk about this. Call me back." He didn't call back. I drove to the tech campus and waited in the visitor parking lot, hoping to catch him during lunch. When he finally emerged from the building with 2 co-workers, I got out of my car and waved. "Simon, over here." His colleagues looked between us curiously as he approached, their expressions suggesting they knew exactly who I was and why I might be there. "What are you doing here, Evadne?" "I heard people are spreading lies about us, about me. You need to set the record straight." "What lies?" "You know what I'm talking about. The screenshots, the photos. Someone's trying to make me look bad." Simon's co-workers had stopped a respectful distance away, but they were clearly listening. He noticed and lowered his voice. "Are the screenshots inaccurate?" "That's not the point. The point is someone violated our privacy." "Our privacy," he repeated. Interesting way to put it. "Simon, please. Your whole office thinks I'm some kind of cheater," he supplied helpfully. "Because that's what the evidence suggests." "There is no evidence because nothing happened." One of his co-workers cleared his throat. "Simon, we're going to head back inside. Take your time." They left us alone in the parking lot, but I could see other employees watching through the building's glass front. I felt like an animal in a zoo. "You're humiliating me," I hissed. "I'm not doing anything. The truth is humiliating you." "What truth? You have some text messages taken out of context and a few innocent photos. That doesn't prove anything." Simon pulled out his phone and scrolled through something. "Would you like to see the photos? Because they're not as innocent as you think." My stomach dropped. "What photos?" He turned the screen toward me. It was a picture of Jax and me at the bistro, but not from this week. This was from months ago, one of our early meetings. We were sitting close together, my hand on his arm, both of us laughing. To anyone who didn't know the context, it looked exactly like what it was. A date. Where did you get this? Someone sent it anonymously, along with several others from different dates and times. They're quite thorough. Someone's stalking us, this is harassment. Or someone's been watching you lie to me for months and finally decided to speak up. I looked around the parking lot, suddenly paranoid. Who would do that? I don't know, could be anyone. A server at the restaurant, someone from Jax's building, one of your co-workers who saw you leaving early for your appointments. When you live a double life, Evadne, you never know who's paying attention. The implications hit me like a physical blow. How many people knew? How many had been watching, judging, collecting evidence? How many were laughing about it behind my back? I want to see all of it, I demanded. Everything someone sent you. No. It's about me. I have a right to know. You have a right to know that I know. That's enough. Simon started walking back toward the building. I followed, desperate to regain some control over the situation. If you share those photos with anyone else, I'll sue you for harassment, for defamation. He stopped and turned back to me with something that might have been amusement. Sue me for sharing photos of you with another man. Photos that show you doing exactly what you've been denying. Good luck with that. Simon, please, we can fix this. We can go to counseling, work through our problems. Don't let some anonymous troublemaker destroy what we have. For a moment, his expression softened slightly. What do we have, Evadne? Really? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like I have a girlfriend who lies about where she goes, who she sees and what she does. A girlfriend who thinks I'm just one option she's graciously chosen to keep around. What exactly am I supposed to be fighting to save? You're supposed to be fighting for me. For us. I was fighting for us. For 2 years, I was fighting to build something real with you, but you were building something else entirely. He walked into the building, leaving me standing alone in the parking lot with dozens of his co-workers watching through the windows. I felt exposed, judged, like everyone could see through me. That evening, I called Marlene again. I need your help, I said without preamble. Someone's spreading rumors about me, and I need people who know the real story to speak up. What's the real story, Evie? That Simon's being paranoid and controlling. That he's trying to destroy my reputation because I hurt his ego. Marlene was quiet for a long moment. Have you been seeing Jax? We're friends, that's all. That's not what I asked. Marlene, whose side are you on here? I'm on the side of truth. And honestly, I think you need to start telling it before this gets worse. It can't get worse. I was wrong again. The next morning, I woke to 17 missed calls and 43 text messages. My phone had been buzzing all night, but I'd turned off the sound and ignored it. Now, scrolling through the notifications, I felt the world tilt sideways. The messages were from co-workers, old friends, acquaintances I hadn't spoken to in years. They all said variations of the same thing. Saw the post about you and Simon. Are you okay? Girl, what happened? Is it true about you and his friend? With shaking hands, I opened Facebook. The post was at the top of my feed, shared by someone I didn't recognize, but who apparently had mutual friends with half my social circle. It was a long, detailed account of a woman who humiliated her boyfriend at a family dinner by bragging about her options, not knowing he'd already discovered her months-long affair with his best friend. No names were mentioned, but the details were specific enough that anyone who knew us would recognize the story immediately. The post had been shared 47 times and had over 200 comments, most of them variations of, "I know exactly who this is about." My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold the phone. I called Jax immediately. "Did you see it?" I asked when he answered. "Yeah, I saw it." "Who did this? Who would write something like that?" "I don't know, but Evie, we have a problem. My roommate's been asking questions. He knows we've been spending time together. And he's friends with Ben Dorsey. Your roommate told Simon's brother. I don't know what he told him, but last night Ben showed up here asking to talk to me. I wasn't home, but Jared said he seemed pretty serious. We need to get our stories straight. No, Jack said firmly. We need to stop talking. Period. I can't be involved in this anymore. You are involved. You've been involved for 6 months. And now I'm uninvolved. Don't call me again, Evie. Don't text me. Don't show up at my apartment. It's over. The line went dead. I stared at the phone, unable to process that everyone, Simon, Marlene, Jax, was abandoning me when I needed them most. I called in sick to work again and spent the day watching the Facebook posts spread through my social networks like wildfire. Friends of friends were sharing it, adding their own commentary about women like this and poor Simon. My name wasn't mentioned, but it didn't need to be. The story was specific enough that anyone in our social circle knew exactly who it was about. By evening, Linda Dorsey had blocked me on all social media platforms. So had Ben. So had most of Simon's friends, and several of mine. I was being systematically erased from the social networks I'd spent years building. The isolation was suffocating. I tried calling my mother, Rita, but she was at her book club and couldn't talk long. When I tried to explain what was happening, she interrupted. Evadne, honey, I'm sure this is all a misunderstanding. Simon seems like a nice boy, but he's always been a little intense. Maybe you two just aren't compatible. Mom, people are lying about me online. They're destroying my reputation. Well, the best thing to do is ignore it. This kind of gossip always dies down eventually. But it wasn't dying down. It was growing, spreading, taking on a life of its own. And somewhere in the middle of it all, Simon was quietly, methodically building his case against me. I just didn't realize yet how thorough that case would be. The anonymous email arrived on a Thursday morning while I was getting ready for work. My phone chimed with a notification from my personal Gmail account, an address I rarely gave out, used mostly for online shopping and subscriptions. The sender was listed as a friend, and the subject line read, "You should know." Inside was a single paragraph. Simon has hired a private investigator. He has photos, financial records, and witness statements. He's also consulted with a lawyer about his options. Thought you should be prepared. Attached were 3 photos I'd never seen before. One showed Jax and me entering his apartment building together on a Tuesday afternoon when I'd told Simon I was at a doctor's appointment. Another captured us kissing in the parking garage beneath the downtown bistro. The third was taken through a restaurant window, us holding hands across a table, looking for all the world like a couple celebrating an anniversary. I sank onto my bed, phone trembling in my hands. A private investigator, a lawyer. This wasn't just about hurt feelings anymore. Simon was treating this like a legal case, and I was apparently the defendant. I called Jax, despite his warnings to leave him alone. It went straight to voicemail. I tried again. Same result. On the third attempt, a different voice answered. Jax's phone. Who is this? This is Jared, his roommate. Jax asked me to answer his calls for a while. He doesn't want to talk to you. I need to speak with him. It's important. Lady, I'm going to be real with you. You need to leave him alone. And you need to know that whatever you two were doing, it's about to come out in a big way. Simon's brother was here yesterday with a lawyer. They had a lot of questions. What kind of questions? About dates, times, how often you were here. About things Jax might have said about his relationship with you. About whether I ever saw you two being intimate. My vision started to blur around the edges. What did you tell them? I told them the truth, that you've been coming around for months, that you and Jax weren't exactly playing chess up in his room, that he's been feeling guilty about it but couldn't seem to stop. You had no right. Actually, I had every right. Simon's a good guy, and what you two did to him was messed up. Jax knows it too. That's why he's finally doing the right thing. What do you mean, the right thing? He's writing a statement for Simon's lawyer about the timeline, about what happened, about what you told him about your relationship with Simon. He's coming clean about everything. The phone slipped from my numb fingers and clattered on the floor. Jax was cooperating with Simon's lawyer, giving statements, providing evidence, confirming the affair I'd spent weeks denying. I called Marlene, my last remaining ally. She answered on the first ring. "Evie, thank God. I've been trying to reach you. We need to talk." "You've heard? About the lawyer?" "Yeah, I heard. Ben Dorsey called me last night. They want to interview me too." "Interview you about what?" "About what you told me. About your complaints about Simon, about your friendship with Jax, about whether I knew what was really going on." "You can't talk to them. Attorney-client privilege or something." "That's not how friendship works, Evie. And honestly, I don't know what I'd say anyway. You never told me the whole truth." "I told you everything." "No, you told me what you wanted me to believe. There's a difference." I could hear the disappointment in her voice, the distance that had been growing between us since this all started. "Marlene, please, I need someone on my side." "I am on your side. That's why I'm telling you to get ahead of this. Hire your own lawyer. Control the narrative before Simon does it for you." "I can't afford a lawyer." "Then tell the truth, publicly, completely. Apologize and hope people forgive you." "There's nothing to apologize for." Marlene sighed. "Evie, I love you, but you're living in a fantasy. Everyone knows what happened. The photos are everywhere now. Jax is talking to lawyers. Your own behavior at that family dinner confirmed what people already suspected. You can keep denying it, but that's just going to make you look worse when the truth comes out." "What truth? What is everyone so sure they know?" "That you've been cheating on Simon with his best friend for months. That you humiliated him in front of his family. That you've been lying to everyone, including me, about what you've been doing and where you've been going." Each word hit like a physical blow. You believe them over me. I believe the evidence, and so will everyone else. After Marlene hung up, I sat in my empty apartment and tried to figure out how everything had gone so wrong so quickly. A week ago, I'd had a boyfriend, a social circle, friends who trusted me. Now I was facing lawyers and private investigators and witness statements. The worst part was the isolation. Simon had effectively cut me off from his entire family and friend group, people I'd grown close to over 2 years, people I'd thought cared about me. Linda, who used to text me recipes and funny stories about Simon's childhood. Ben, who'd always treated me like a little sister. Even the kids, Ellie and Max, who'd grown used to having me at family gatherings. All gone, all turned against me by a few careless words and some damning photographs. I tried to go to work, but concentration was impossible. Every time my phone buzzed, I expected it to be another anonymous tip or a message from Simon's lawyer. My co-workers kept glancing at me strangely. Apparently the gossip had reached my office too. During lunch, I drove to my mother's house. Rita Leclair lived in a tidy suburban neighborhood, about 20 minutes from downtown, in the same house where I'd grown up. She answered the door in her gardening clothes, soil under her fingernails, and a confused expression on her face. "Evadne, what are you doing here? Shouldn't you be at work?" I took a half day. "Mum, I need to talk to you about something." She led me to the kitchen and put on a pot of coffee, chattering about her flower beds and the neighbor's new dog. I let her talk, trying to gather the courage to explain what was happening. "Mum," I finally interrupted, "Simon and I broke up." "Oh, honey, I'm sorry. What happened? You seem so happy together." "It's complicated. There are misunderstandings. People are saying things about me that aren't true." Rita sat down across from me, her expression growing serious. "What kind of things?" "They think I was seeing someone else. Simon's friend Jax. But we were just friends, and now everyone's making it into something it wasn't." "Were you spending time with this Jax person?" "Sometimes, as friends. Simon was always working, and Jax was available to talk. My mother studied my face with the expression she'd perfected during my teenage years, the one that said she knew I wasn't telling the whole truth, but was waiting to see how deep the lie would go. Evadne, were you having an affair? The direct question caught me off guard. Mom, that's not an answer. It's not that simple. Simon and I were having problems. He was neglecting me, taking me for granted. Jax was just there. So yes, you were having an affair. I was finding emotional support that I wasn't getting from my relationship. Rita sat back in her chair, looking older than she had when I'd arrived. Oh, Evadne. Don't say it like that. Like I'm some terrible person. Relationships are complicated. Cheating isn't complicated, honey. It's a choice. And apparently it's a choice that's had consequences. Everyone's acting like I committed murder. It's not that big a deal. It is to Simon, and to his family, and apparently to a lot of other people. So you're taking their side too? I'm not taking anyone's side, but I am disappointed that you thought lying was easier than dealing with your relationship problems, honestly. I'd come to my mother's house looking for unconditional support, someone who would tell me that everyone else was wrong, and I was the victim of a cruel misunderstanding. Instead, I was getting the same lecture I'd heard from everyone else. I should go, I said, standing abruptly. Evadne, wait, sit down, let's talk about this properly. There's nothing to talk about, you've already decided I'm guilty. I've decided you're not telling me the truth, there's a difference. But I was already heading for the door, too angry and hurt to listen to another person I loved tell me I was wrong. In my car, I sat in my mother's driveway for 10 minutes, crying and trying to figure out where to go next. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Check your email. Another message from a friend, this one with a single attachment, a legal document titled Petition for Restraining Order. Simon was asking a court to legally prohibit me from contacting him, his family, his workplace, or his friends. The petition included a detailed timeline of our relationship, the affair, and the aftermath. It mentioned the dinner incident, the workplace visits, my attempts to contact Jax against his wishes. It painted a picture of escalating harassment and emotional abuse. At the bottom, in Simon's careful handwriting, was a note. Evadne will receive official notice tomorrow. This is a courtesy warning to allow her to prepare. Even his revenge was methodical and fair. He was giving me time to hire a lawyer, to prepare my defense, to get my affairs in order before the legal system became involved. I should have been grateful for the consideration. Instead, I was terrified. A restraining order was public record. It would show up in background checks, employment screenings, apartment applications. It would follow me for years, a legal confirmation that I was the kind of person other people needed protection from. But more than that, it was proof that Simon was done with half measures. He wasn't just ending our relationship. He was systematically removing me from his life and protecting himself from any future contact. The scared, rational part of me knew I should call a lawyer immediately, should start preparing for a legal battle I was probably going to lose. The angry, desperate part of me wanted to drive to Ben's apartment and force Simon to talk to me face to face, to make him remember what we'd had together before everything went wrong. I chose anger. It was a mistake that would cost me everything. The process server found me at work on Friday afternoon. I was in the middle of updating a client database when the receptionist called to say someone was asking for me in the lobby. I assumed it was a delivery, or maybe Simon finally coming to talk things through. Instead, I found a middle-aged woman in a business suit holding a manila envelope. Evadne Leclair? Yes. You've been served. She handed me the envelope and walked away before I could ask any questions. My hands shook as I opened it in the lobby, my co-workers pretending not to stare. Inside were several legal documents, all bearing the seal of the county court. A temporary restraining order, effective immediately. a court date set for the following Thursday, and a detailed affidavit from Simon outlining every interaction we'd had since the dinner incident. The restraining order prohibited me from coming within 500 feet of Simon, his workplace, his family members, or his residence. It specifically mentioned Ben's apartment, Linda's house, and even the kids' school. I was legally banned from contacting him by phone, email, text, or social media. I couldn't send messages through third parties or show up at places I knew he'd be. Violation of the order was a criminal offense, punishable by fines and jail time. I read through Simon's affidavit with growing horror. He'd documented everything. My appearance at his workplace, my calls and texts after he'd asked for space, my attempts to contact Jax after being told to stop. He'd included screenshots of my social media posts, photos of my car in Ben's apartment parking lot, even a statement from building security about my aggressive behavior when they'd refused to let me upstairs. But the worst part was the timeline of the affair. Simon had been keeping track for months, noting discrepancies in my stories, documenting my lies about where I'd been and what I'd been doing. He had credit card records showing charges at restaurants I'd claimed never to have visited, phone records proving I'd been in contact with Jax far more than I'd admitted, even GPS data from my phone showing I'd been at Jax's apartment during times I'd said I was elsewhere. The evidence was overwhelming and meticulously organized. Simon hadn't just suspected I was cheating. He'd been building a legal case against me for months, probably since long before the dinner incident. I drove home in a daze, the legal documents scattered across my passenger seat. The apartment felt like a crime scene now, every corner holding evidence of the life I'd been living and the lies I'd been telling. Simon's belongings were mostly gone. He'd been gradually removing his things over the past week while I was at work. What remained were my possessions and the furniture we'd bought together, now legally in dispute. The court hearing was scheduled for Thursday at 2 p.m. I had 6 days to prepare a defense, to hire a lawyer, to somehow convince a judge that I wasn't the stalking, harassing ex-girlfriend Simon's evidence made me out to be. I called 3 law firms on Monday morning. The first 2 wouldn't take my case. Apparently, restraining order violations were more serious than I'd realized, and my evidence of innocence was thin. The third lawyer, a tired-looking man named David Park, agreed to meet with me for a consultation. "This is not good," he said after reviewing the documents. "Your ex-boyfriend has been very thorough. The evidence of an affair is substantial, and the pattern of contact after he asked for space could definitely be seen as harassment." I wasn't harassing him. I was trying to save our relationship. From a legal standpoint, there's no difference. He asked you to stop contacting him, and you continued to do so. That's the definition of harassment. "So what can we do?" Park leaned back in his chair, studying me with professional skepticism. "Honestly, not much. The best outcome here is probably agreeing to the permanent restraining order in exchange for him not pursuing criminal charges for the violations that have already occurred." "Criminal charges?" "You violated the temporary order by going to his workplace twice after being served. Security cameras caught you in the parking lot. That's criminal contempt of court." I hadn't even realized I was violating anything. After being served on Friday, I'd driven to Simon's office building twice over the weekend, hoping to catch him and explain my side of the story. I'd never gotten out of my car, never even seen him, but apparently that didn't matter. How much trouble am I in? That depends on how vindictive your ex-boyfriend is feeling. He could push for jail time, fines, a permanent criminal record, or he could accept an apology and a promise to stay away. "And if I fight the restraining order," my lawyer warned, "fighting means the affair becomes public record, legal fact, not just gossip." That week, gossip reached my workplace through Facebook. My boss called me in. "Clients are asking about your reliability. Take unpaid leave until this is resolved." I cleaned out my desk while co-workers pretended not to watch. Thursday at the courthouse, Simon sat with an expensive lawyer and his parents, wearing a suit I'd helped him choose. He looked at me like a stranger. His lawyer presented everything methodically: the affair timeline, my lies, witness statements from Jax, building security, servers. I tried explaining my actions were motivated by love, but was forced to admit, yes, I'd lied. Yes, I'd contacted him after being told to stop. Yes, I'd violated the temporary order. The judge's decision was swift: permanent restraining order, 5 years, no contact. Leaving, I tried catching Simon's eye, some acknowledgement of what we'd been. He walked past without a glance. I stood in the rain, watching them drive away. No boyfriend, no job, no friends. Just me and consequences I'd convinced myself didn't matter. But Simon wasn't done yet. The eviction notice arrived with Simon's itemized asset division, calculated to the penny, perfectly fair, completely devastating. I moved back to my mother's house at 32. Job searches failed when background checks revealed the restraining order. 3 months later, I worked retail, barely contributing to household expenses. Then I saw the Facebook post: Simon at a work party with a new woman. Simon deserves all the happiness in the world after everything he's been through. Linda commented, "She's wonderful. Already feels like part of the family." He'd moved on while I picked up pieces. 6 months later, his wedding announcement arrived: Simon and Catherine Mills, surrounded by friends who'd once been mine too. I'd been edited out completely. At 33, living with my mother, working retail, legally barred from contacting him, I finally understood. I'd lost not just Simon, but the woman I'd been with him, someone worthy of love and trust. Simon's revenge wasn't revenge. It was simply truth, documented and undeniable. I'd gotten exactly what I deserved.